Hello and welcome to another tutorial from Ben's Box. Just before we start the creating a table for MySQL tutorial, I wanted to go over one quick thing, and that is data types. Okay, if you are familiar with databases, then you probably understand the reasons for it, and you probably understand all the data types themselves. Okay, but I just want a quick overview, just of the data types in MySQL, just so you know what type of types to use when you are creating your tables. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly run through the ones that we will be using mainly in our series, which just cover one of each type. There's integers, strings, and there's time and date. Okay, so what I'll do first, I'll just start with the integer one. Okay, and I'll just go through the rest of them afterwards. And so as you can see at the moment, I'm in PHP my admin, and here is the type. Okay, and this is creating the structure of a table. Okay, so as you can see, these are all the data types. We won't be looking forward to them at all. Okay, the first one we're going to start with is int, which is integer. Okay, basically the integer allows us to store numeric figures. Okay, it doesn't allow us to store any decimals, but if you are creating a database that isn't going to be used by millions of people, then integer is definitely the best one to use. The reason we use integer in our series is for auto increment. So this will be for all our IDs. So every time we add something to the database, we want it to have an ID. So we use auto increment to create the ID itself, and integer because it allows us to have a lot of value. Okay, so that's the first one. So that's just numeric figures. Okay, and then the next one will be decimal. Okay, I'm sure you can guess the reason why would you want to use decimal. Like I said, integer doesn't allow us to use decimal places. There are other types of decimals, but this is the best one simply because it does store it as a string. Okay, it doesn't do any rounding. So we would use this for things such as what would we use it for? We use it for currency. Okay, but with the decimal, you do have to set some parameters. So if I do this, for example, this means that we can have 10 whole numbers followed by 2 decimal points, 2 decimal places, sorry. Okay, so if we add 2 decimal places, obviously that will cover currency. Alternatively, you could just store it as a integer and keep it in cents, pence, basically as small as possible. Okay, but if you do want to say things in dollars, pounds, euros, etc., then decimal is definitely the best one to choose. Okay, obviously you can use it for other things too, but that's the main reason that we would use it. Now we'll move on to strings, and the first one we're going to look at is varchar. Okay, so this is a variable characters, and what this allows us to do is store string into our database. Okay, there are many different types of string data types. Okay, the reason we use varchar is that it allows us to store up to 255 characters, which doesn't seem a lot. Obviously there's alternatives for more than 255, but if we know that something's only going to be for like 10 characters, then we can put 10 in here, and it will only allow 10 characters to be entered. Okay, basically this is all about saving file space. Okay, because each time we add something to the database, it does take up file space. Okay, so the smaller the file size or each data size, the quicker our searches will be, and the more we can fit in. Alright, so that's varchar. But if you do want the full lot, it is 255. Okay, and that means that's the maximum value you can have in a varchar. But like I said, there is alternatives. So we'll look at text next, and text is much larger than varchar. You don't have to set any parameters. Okay, but it does allow us to store up to 65,535 characters in it, which is normally plenty enough. Okay, so this is great for things like long emails, or if we're creating a page content. Obviously we're not going to be able to fit a whole page contents in 255 characters, so we use text. Like I said, there are alternatives to text. There's tiny text, which is just a little bit less, medium text was a little bit more, long text which is just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, but like I say, it's all about using the minimum as possible to save file space. Alright, okay, now we'll move on to time and date. So the first one we'll look at is date. We'll just go into date, and as you can probably guess, the date stores the date. Alright, the format it stores it in is like this. Okay, year, another year, sorry about that. Month, and then day. Okay, so if you're going to be storing something, you do need to store it in like this. So if you are writing a default, it would be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, I've done it plenty of times before, and that will create the default date. Okay. There's also date and time. Basically, what this allows us to do is create the date and time together. So we have hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay, and this would be stored like this. Okay, there's two types of date and times. Okay, there's this date time one, and there's timestamp. The difference is that this date time one does double the amount of file space it needs. This is 8 bytes, whereas the timestamp will only take up 4 bytes. So it depends, like I say, how much data you're going to have, how necessary it is for superb speed. Okay, most of the time I use date time just because it's nice and clear, and a lot of my content doesn't need to be sieved through real quickly, and I don't have a lot of date time stuff in it. Okay, but let me just show you the timestamp one. Okay, that's basically done like this without any dashes or colons. Okay, so that's 4 bytes timestamp, and it does exactly the same thing. The output's slightly different, okay, but there are PHP functions that you can use to tweak the format of the date and times. Alright, so that's the timestamp, and like I said, this is only 4 bytes. There's also just time, which is going to be the last one we look at. Okay, and also as you can guess, it just shows the time. So this is just like this: hour, month, month, yeah, minute, second. Okay, and again for default, it's just like that. So you know, we can use time for all sorts of things. The last time someone logged on, the time someone saved something, you know, whatever. But these are the main data types that we are going to be using throughout the series, and throughout the rest of this just tutorials. Okay, so it's just important that you just understand the majority of them. What I will do though, I'll stick all the data types, or the majority of the data types, and all the details on BensBoxTut. Now, so if you're watching on YouTube, click on the link at the bottom or in the description. If you are watching through BensBox, then you should be able to see all the other details now. Alright, so thank you for watching this tutorial, and we will get back to creating our first table in the next one now. Okay, cheers.